What's up, guys? Welcome to Make It Yourself. And for today's video, we're gonna do our first, maybe our second modification to the Road King, and that is we're gonna lower it. So I didn't expect this, and maybe I just didn't do enough homework. But the Road King actually sits higher than my Road Glide. So I've got a 2007 Road King, comparing it to a 2017 Road Glide. Now the seat height difference, and I didn't remember, or I didn't write down or anything, the actual specific numbers, but it's about a 2-inch difference in height. The Road King sits higher. So I didn't catch this until I was trying to kind of waddle the bike around to get things out of the way sometimes, and I felt like I was struggling to touch the ground a little bit more than normal. And when I would get on the Road Glide, I just felt like perfectly fit. So it was kind of weird. And then I lined them up side by side and realized, hey, one's taller than the other. So I've got to fix that. I like to sit, I can stand flat-footed, but I can't sit flat-footed. And I just kind of like that feel of being able to just simply put my feet down very comfortably, feel much more in control of the bike. And then, as you know, with the Road Glide, or with the Road King, we've got the saddle style seat, and that spreads your legs a little bit more, versus the stock seat that came on the Road Glide is quite a bit more narrow and gives you a little bit more length, right? So we're going to go ahead and add some adapters to the rear shocks of the Road King. So our first steps are going to be, we got to get this thing level, sitting on a scissor jack, just to kind of keep it stood up first. And we're going to measure to see where we're at on the exhaust pipe. And after we do this, we'll take another measurement and see if we're hitting the 2-inch mark that we're looking for. So the adapters we got are supposed to lower your bike 1, 2, or 3 inches, depending on which hole you select. It should be pretty simple. It's essentially 3 bolts per side once you get the adapter on. So you have to take off your saddlebags, get it up. You'll have to relieve pressure from the shock, but you don't want to lift it all the way up. And kind of put those adapters in. So let's get it settled, or let's get this thing standing up first, and then we'll take a measurement. All right, so I was going to put this up on the scissor jack and try to get it leveled out perfectly to get a good measurement across both exhaust pipes, but it was kind of being a pain in the butt. I couldn't get it to sit just right. It was kind of funky. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to put it on its side stand, because that's going to be consistent, and we'll do our measurements that way. So on the right side, so our higher exhaust, of course, is at about 14 inches, 14 5/8. And then our lower side here, which is going to be our left side, is sitting at about 11 1/8. So there's our starting point. We'll take that, and like I said, this should be a pretty easy process to walk through. And we'll get it dropped back down and see what it looks like. Okay, so this is a pretty simple process. Like I said, 2 bolts, right? And then we'll bring in the kit and we'll go over the kit. But ultimately what we want to do first is loosen these up, and then you'll want to give this a little twist to make sure you don't have any pressure on the shock, because it'll make it easier to try to take it off. So the nuts, or the bolts on these, are 3/4. So the top one, you shouldn't have to take it all the way off. It's the bottom one that you're going to have to do. So once you break it loose, actually I take that back. You will want to take it off, because you're going to want to reapply some of the Loctite on it, just to be sure that stuff doesn't kind of rattle off on you. Okay, for the low one, I'm going to get an extension, but ultimately I'm going to loosen this up, and like I said, I'm going to give it a wiggle. And yeah, so let me zip through that real quick. Okay, so let's talk about what comes in the kit. So it's really simple. You get 2 of the lowering blocks, and a bag of bolts with some washers, lock washers, and nuts. So it's pretty simple. You're going to put this nubbed side on the inside. This is going to go in the original mounting hole, and then these are your options as far as lowering your bike. So it's 1 inch, 2 inch, and then 3 inch. Because my Road Glide is 2 inches and I love the way it sits, I'm going to go with this middle hole. Now, one of the things that I have seen online is some folks have had issues because you're throwing off the angle of your suspension, and that has created some problems. Equally, I found people who said they've had no problem with it. So it's kind of hit or miss. And yeah, so I'm going to take the chance, see how it feels. I mean, if it works, great. If it feels wrong, if it doesn't seem to ride as well, then I take them off, right? So just keep in mind, holes go up, nub goes on the inside. I took a minute and just kind of threw some tape on here so that way I wouldn't forget myself. So we could take that reminder off and we can bolt it up. Now, like I said, you're going to want to use some blue Loctite to put on your bolts once you get these things put together. All right, I wanted to take a quick hot minute to just go over the hardware that comes with the kit, because you may look at it and go, what the heck? So they provide you 4 replacement bolts to replace the longer ones that are on your bike today, and then you get 2 additional ones. So the shorter ones are going to replace the lower original, because now you're not going through the whole shock, that thick wide spacer. You're going through the thin plate, so you don't need as long as of a bolt. So you're going to put that on, but what you'll need to do is reuse the hardware that was on yours. So you want to just go ahead and put your locking washer on and your flat washer. Like I said, throw some Loctite on there and then install this in that original hole. So let's take a look at that, and then we'll also replace the upper and lowers. All right, so on the bottom, as I mentioned, we're going to use that shorter one. Let me throw some Loctite on there. We'll get our plate. Remember, nub on the inside, holes are up. What you probably want to do is just kind of get everything together kind of loose. Don't crank it down just yet, so that way you get everything nice and settled. You don't want to get this thing tightened down and you have it at a bad angle and you can't get everything together, right? So on your second setup, which is going to be one of the longs, you're going to have your nut, a lock washer, and a flat washer. What you'll want to do is get this in place and make sure you put your Loctite on there, right? So that's going to be really important. So in reality, you don't need to use Loctite on this one. I didn't even catch this right away, but this has got a locking nut. So that's that white strip there. So we'll go ahead and put that in place. Like I said, I'm doing this loosely because since I have this jacked up, it's offsetting things. So like the bracket is not sitting where it needs to. It's going to have to come down a bit before it rests in the correct position. And you'll want to make sure you do that before you torque your stuff down. Because keep in mind, you're going to have to retorque your bolts to do this right. Now, in theory, you can reuse your original top bolt if you want to, but you got to take it out to replace that Loctite anyways. So why not put a fresh new bolt in there? Why not, right? Okay, so I've got it loosely set up. I'm going to go do the other side before I lower down the jack to get it in its resting position before I torque everything down. So I'm going to go knock that other side out really quick. Both sides are on. Again, they're kind of loose. I haven't torqued them down just yet because at this point what I need to do is let the bike come down a bit, because if you recall the nub that was on the inside of that adapter, it's got to swing down, and that's what kind of stops it from flipping around or anything on you. So you got to release that pressure, get it lowered out, and then you can torque your stuff down. Once we have that done and it's torqued, that'll be it for the installation of the lowering kit. However, we will have one more step to do because this is a Road King Classic versus a Road King with the hard bags. There's going to be a little bit more work, and I'll show you what that is. Everything is now torqued down. It's I looked it up. It's 35 to 40 foot-pounds, and that's why it's so important to look up your torque values, because some people might think, well, this is suspension, so you want to crank down on it or whatever, and that may not necessarily be true. So super important. Always check the specs before you torque your stuff down, so that way you don't, end up damaging threads or whatever, and then you're in a bad place. So everything's in. Like I said, I lowered it down a bit so that way this nub could seat where it needs to. You can't really see, it's hard to tell, but it's resting now against the frame like it's supposed to. I've got Loctite on everything we needed to have Loctite on, and tighten down these bolts here. So now we can let this thing come down all the way. Okay, moment of truth when it comes to measuring. And so if you look back, if you view the playback, I measured the right side at 14 5/8 of an inch, and we are now about 12 3/4. And then on the left side, we were 11 1/8. And now we are down to 9 about 9 3/4, 9 7/8. Right, so a pretty good drop in things. So that's great. That's exactly what we're looking for. I've already sat on the bike to see how it feels. It feels great. It's exactly kind of where I wanted it to be, so that way I could sit down comfortably in the seat, be flat-footed. I need to definitely take it for a ride, see how it feels and all that good stuff. I know one of the questions that I would ask as a person watching this video, and that is, did you have to change your kickstand, right? Because as you lower your bike, if your kickstand's too long, you have to worry about your bike tipping over. So let's take a look at that. So this is the stock kickstand, and she's stable. She ain't moving. Now, let me turn the wheel or the handlebars to the left, because that's kind of your tipping. That's your tipping challenge in my view. So it is still pretty stable. I mean, if you give it a really good tug, yeah, you can pick it up. It's probably a little bit easier than what it was, but it's negligible. Like, I'd say you're absolutely fine, especially if you turn your bars the way they're supposed to be, which is to the left, and that puts maximum lean angle on your bike. So if we want to look at that lean angle, that's what she looks like. All right, so let's talk about the challenge that we're going to have. So on your Road King Classic, the backside or the inside of your saddlebag is not shaped the same way as the hard bag is. These have I guess either it's a more defined or differently defined area for the shock to be in. So because of that, it will hit this side. You're not going to be able to put your saddlebag on, right? That shock is now in the way. So how do you address that? Well, this is ABS plastic, I believe. I don't think it's fiberglass. So it's ABS plastic wrapped with leather. And the one thing we all know about plastic is you get it hot enough and you can mold it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a marker to identify where the shock is going to flow as far as, the area it needs. Then we're going to take a heat gun. I'm going to heat that up to make it malleable, right? I can move it around, reshape that area that I've marked off, and then cool it down so it holds its shape, and then I should be able to put my bags back on. So let me get to marking. Here is what my plan is. So I've marked where that shock now crosses over. You can see the original indentation is here. That shock now goes through here. So I'm going to take my heat gun. I'm using a focus tip just to kind of hone in on one particular area because I'm not trying to melt the entire thing. I just want this area. And once I get it hot enough where I can see that I can actually mold it, I'm going to use this stick here, dowel, let me be fancy wood talk here, and just kind of apply pressure on it and just roll it down, right? And roll it up so I can get that curve into this. Now, I do plan to go hard bags at one point. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but when I do, this won't be an issue. But for now, I want to have saddlebags, so I need to make this modification. So, yeah, let me get to it. So here's what the modified bag looks like. So all I did is took my heat gun, actually used the top part of my floor jack to put pressure, and then once I had it kind of pressed in the position that I wanted, I took a wet rag from a bucket of cold water and then just kind of sat it on there and applied a little bit more pressure, so that way it cooled it down and reshaped it. Yeah, so it just took a little bit of time to do it. The left side bag, I made the mistake of trying to work my way from here out to that marker. And with this one, it was quicker just to approach it right on the marker, start there and work my way in. So just a lesson learned. But now that I put it on, it kind of hard to do with one hand, but I get the clearance that I need. Kind of hard to see, but I now have that clearance, so the shock's not going to be hitting the bag and knocking it around or anything. So that's going to be a huge plus, right? So yeah, we'll get this kind of all bolted up, and then we'll get some outside shots. So yeah, so now that it's on, I'm got to adjust a little bit, but the shock's not hitting the saddlebag, so it'll be able to move freely and not knock the saddlebag around. So now I just got to mount it up, and we'll get some shots outside so you can see the difference in, well, not the difference, but you'll see that it's lower. And I'll show a pic of what it was originally. So here it is now that the bags are on and it's lowered. Let's take a look here. Get down. So you can see it's not a huge difference, just because I essentially brought it down to the stock level of the Road Glide, but it's comfortable. I can actually maneuver it very easily without a struggle. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, lowering it down just those 2 inches have made the world of difference. And so, of course, we'll put some miles on it, get some use out of it, and see how it feels after, using it for some time. See if I have any issues with rubbing or any of that stuff. I will bring that up in my review Wednesday when I do look at these, take a look back at the lowering blocks. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you enjoy my content, become a subscriber. Looking forward to having you as a member of our community and getting your feedback. And if you don't want to miss out on that next video, hit the notification bell. And when it posts, you'll get the notification. And until that video does post, I hope to see you in the wind.